Hey, Grande Live. This is Will Bowman, and I'm here with Blake Bars, who is the, I believe, manager here at Nature's Pantry.
Yes,
That's
sir.
correct. And
Yes,
he's
sir.
going to chat with me. We're here at the Nature's Pantry local vendors appreciation day, and we are essentially there's a bunch of local vendors that actually sell their product to Nature's Pantry, and that are here doing samples, doing explanations, and just essentially sort of showing people the face behind the products that are here on the shelves at Nature's Pantry. And I wanted to sit down and talk with Blake a little bit about Nature's Pantry and who they are and what they do. And so yeah, thanks for chatting with me, Blake. And we were just talking before the camera was rolling. It was really good stuff about how a lot of the processed food or chemicals and byproducts that they put in a lot of foods that are vetted by the FDA really do have consequences on our bodies when we put them in there. And I mean, and Nature's Pantry, if I'm correct, is kind of like its mission is to provide people with things that are wholesome and nutritious that they can put in their bodies.
Absolutely. We have a very high standard for the ingredients of the products that are in our store.
Yeah.
We don't carry things with like high fructose corn syrup or artificial flavors or sweeteners. What's interesting, Will, is that over this short period of time, maybe 50 years, we've introduced all these chemicals into our foods. And we don't really know what the long-term effects of these chemicals are yet.
No.
People are starting to find.
Well, and I was going to say, I would argue that we are seeing some of the effects of it. People's, you literally are what you eat, and if you're eating chemicals and nasty stuff, that's what your body and more importantly, your brain is built out of. So
there's been studies too recently where our DNA can be altered by our habits and by the things we put in our body. And so we're not only doing something that affects us, we're doing something that affects our children and future generations.
Yeah, I've heard about the sort of the different generations that you have. Like, when you eat those processed things, not only are you affecting your body, you're affecting your child's body and your grandchild's body.
Right.
You kind of have to spend those generations weaning yourself off of all of the really kind of toxic stuff that is put into your body.
Sure.
So
yeah, it's really interesting. It's really kind of sad to see the misinformation out there and the stuff that's out there that we're promoting as healthy products. I mean, somebody once told me, if your product needs a health claim, maybe it's not even real food to begin with. Because the food that God designed for us to eat goes naturally with our bodies. It's perfect and fits right in. So all the pieces are there that we need. So as soon as we start modifying that, especially to the degree that we have, you're going to start seeing some consequences.
Absolutely. It's kind of like for example, running. I'm a runner. One of the big movements out there right now is called the minimalist movement, and it's a shoe that tries to take away, because I believe it was in the 1960s, running companies started making shoes that quote unquote fixed the human running form and from running thing and the stride. And what you see now is you see a lot of runners that are having a lot of problems with their knees, a lot of problems with their backs and their hips, their sciatic, because they've done more research now and they realize that actually humans are genetically designed to run, because when our primordial days, however many billion years ago, if that's something you actually think, if you think that the earth is that old, humans had to hunt by running. They had people who would run long distances to run down a gazelle, because over a short space, a gazelle can outrun a human like that. But over a long period of time, a human can outrun a gazelle because they can outrun them. They have better longevity.
Seems like a bow and arrow might be a more efficient way to kill those.
I don't know if they had bow and arrows yet at this point.
I think we might be surprised how early that was going on.
But anyways, point being, coming back to it, was they started trying to fix the human body, doing something that would have do that. And so when they started doing that, ultimately, they started doing more harm than they do good. So the minimalist movement is moving back towards that running barefoot with a little bit of padding on the ground, so you're not getting nails in your foot, obviously, So it's the same kind of idea, if I'm correct,
Yeah, I think if we're, as far as nutrition, from a nutrition standpoint, if we're taking foods that are coming out of the earth, raw vegetables, potatoes, grains, nuts, seeds, fruit, these are the kind of things that we were designed to take into our bodies and that are going to give us optimal health.
Absolutely.
As soon as any step you take from that, whether we're drying it, processing it, canning it, adding chemicals to it to preserve it, adding sweeteners, artificial flavors, everything we're doing there is something our bodies weren't designed to work with.
For sure, absolutely. So now here's the big question that I think a lot of people have an issue with is most people would agree with all the things that we're talking about right now. But the price point is a very difficult thing to kind of come to, because it's you can't get around the fact that organics are more expensive.
Right.
Generally, people think,
That's why chemicals were introduced, is because we can produce way more product with way less labor, have way higher yields for less money in a small amount of space with these chemicals, and that's where it came from. We're trying to feed people. The intention was never bad. The intention was good, but we're finding there's some unintended consequences from this. So what's interesting is, it wasn't even that long ago, 100 years ago, or around that time, I would say, something like that. People pretty much lived off their own piece of ground. They grew their own food, they had a couple animals, and so the food that they ate was basically from their own front yard.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now, with the Industrial Revolution and the onset of manufacturing and food production, we're seeing there's a huge disconnect between where the food comes from and the consumer. So, and when you find food companies today, they're designing a product that will make money. Okay, that's the intention. They want to be profitable, so they for one need it to sell, and for two need it to not spoil on the shelf.
Absolutely. It's kind of interesting. We have a loaf of white Wonder Bread in the office, in the refrigerator, that's been there for probably 4 months. Hasn't gone bad. And Lydia and I were kind of like, what's in that if the bacteria don't want to eat it, do we want to be eating it?
Right. Well, it was like we found a petroleum product in one of the chips we were eating, and it was like, why is there petroleum product in here? It's like, this chip was designed to outlive me. And then we joked that, well, it's probably going to if I keep eating so much of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So Nature's Pantry kind of tries to move back to what? A more wholesome foods?
Sure, I think a whole foods diet is optimal for health. I think that it's different. That looks different for each individual.
Yeah.
But that you can't go wrong with starting with the introduction of whole foods. You can't go wrong with fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds. I think maybe you replace some coffee with water, some Coca-Cola with some water,
or some rice coffee.
Right. And so I don't remember where I was going with that.
That's okay.
It was really good, I'm sure.
So my other question was we didn't really answer the question, the price point. So
yes,
it's created. These other foods are created for mass production, so they're going to have a lower price point. How can people who are struggling to make ends meet, just in general, rationalize spending extra money? Because no matter what, it's kind of like buying local. No matter what, if you buy local, you're going to spend more money. How can people rationalize spending more money on organics, on on all these kinds of things, as opposed to the cheaper, mass-produced, chemical-filled foods that they're going to buy at a place like Walmart?
Right. So what's interesting is that we talk about organic and we talk about conventional. Like conventional has always been, and like that's the normal
like
food,
the traditional,
right?
yeah.
Well, actually, what I would like to say is there's the food made in a lab, which we're buying from most major grocery retailers, and then there's real food that comes from the earth. And so, the health implications you're talking about here, if you just consider the health costs of eating some of these chemicals and putting these chemicals nonstop into our bodies every day, the health costs alone in the long term are going to far surpass.
When you're 90, a heart attack costs
Right.
300 grand as opposed to an extra $5 at the grocery store.
And how much is quality of life worth to you? I personally enjoy a very high quality of life with being able to be physically active.
Yeah.
To feel good every day when I wake up, and to, I understand there's other circumstances, but, someone who is reasonably healthy can continue that health with a good diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I agree with that. And that's something that Lydia and I have talked about a lot, about the long-term costs as opposed to, the short-term
The other part that's interesting is these products, the conventional grocery is price is driven down because it's just sheer volume. The sheer volume of production, the sheer volume of consumption. And so we've driven the price down. So conversely, we could drive the price down of organics if that's where people started realizing this is better for us and put our money there.
Absolutely.
I mean, we vote with our dollars every day.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that statement. It's the nice thing about the capitalistic hand is that companies will pander to whatever people are buying. Whatever people are buying, that's what they're going to make.
Right.
So if people want Twinkies, they'll make Twinkies. If people want high quality organic foods, that's what they're going to grow because that's where the money is.
Yep.
So the people who, so the way that we can move, these bigger companies toward growing organics, towards being more invested in the health and long-term effects is by buying it.
Yeah, and I think education is the key.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where, I thought I was eating a pretty healthy diet. And then I came to work to Nature's Pantry and I started learning slowly. It wasn't something that I came here and started learning stuff and then did a 180-degree turn with everything in my life. I don't usually recommend that approach because we get burnt out and it's overwhelming.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think baby steps, can I find an organic source for my produce? Can I find a local organic source or a local source where they don't spray it?
Yeah.
Can I get my produce that way? Can I find a person, my neighbor or someone close by that grows eggs?
Absolutely.
And they're not feeding their chickens a bunch of garbage.
Absolutely.
Just baby steps. Can I drink some more water today?
So say somebody, and again, this kind of comes back to the question, say someone is trying to eat a little healthier in their diet. They're trying to drink a little bit more water, trying to buy a little bit more organics, or just non-processed, because there's a difference between organics and non-processed. Organics is a little different. There's other things that go into it. How can somebody take baby steps, either through Nature's Pantry or otherwise, to do that? Because, I know that I'm just graduated from college, and I don't have a lot of money, but there are a lot of people who are worse off than I am, and they're single moms. I just met a girl over at Marketplace Family Foods, single mom, 3 kids, has health problems, those kinds of things. Sometimes it's that really big jump, it's a big jump to get into that,
So I'm sure you've found this in many times. There's a lot of things out there. We can either choose to pay for it and do little work for it, or we can do the work and pay little for it.
That's true.
And so really what I see in our diets today is we've traded, we don't want to do the work. We just want it now. And we don't, give me my meal, give it to me for $1 and give it to me now. Right? And I don't want to have to do anything for it.
Absolutely.
And so we get into this.
That's fast food.
Right. We get into this mindset where, everything's supposed to be $1 and not require anything from us. Yeah. And it ends up really hurting us in the long run. Whereas if we went back to the mindset, which most of the history of the world has lived, where you produce a lot of your own food, or you buy it from your neighbor, or you trade for it, and that food is raw vegetables, grains, these type of meat, eggs, these type of things that you put some effort into. You buy some produce and you cut it up into a salad. It's not already pre-made for you. You buy some beans and you cook them. It's really very affordable, especially if you buy raw foods or bulk foods. But anytime you start packaging something and something that's marketed, you're going to add money to the cost of that product.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing. One thing that I did in college is I grabbed.
Add packaging, subtract my labor. I'm gonna, put that on someone else. I'm gonna subtract my work from it.
Yeah.
The dollars amount's just gonna go up and up.
Yep, and buying things, and the cool thing is, you don't always have to. One thing that's really a big handy tool for people is crock pots.
Right.
Crock pots are wonderful for that, because you
can start it in the morning.
You can start it in the morning. When you come back,
ready.
Dinner is ready. It's served. You got a crock pot. You got a big. You double or triple. You got a big family. You double or triple the meal.
It's vegetables. It's beans. Some meat.
And normally, it's just you just cut it up. You toss it in there, and it's done.
Yep.
So I agree with you. I think that's a cool thing. And I guess again, how to somebody, what are some of the in your experience, what are some of the first steps that someone can make to start in this direction?
Well, I think it's really subjective. I think that just depends on the person.
That's true.
But it's just going to be, an issue, maybe a health issue you're having, or maybe you want more energy in your day, and so you start researching that. Ask some questions. You can come in here, ask anybody here. There's lots of wonderful resources in La Grande and in our valley. People who have a lot of knowledge in natural food and natural remedies and natural living. There's a lot of online resources that are wonderful. And just start learning about one thing and then take some action. Almost every ailment and disease out there can be tied to dehydration.
Water.
So, if we start as simple as water, and just say, I need to start drinking more water, less pop, or whatever you do. They say, as Linda always tells me, we need half our body weight in ounces every day. So if I weigh 160 pounds, that means I need
160?
80 ounces of water.
It's a good thing we have calculators.
Yes. So 80 ounces of water, that's about 2 quarts, a little over 2 quarts, 2.5 quarts. So I just try to drink that amount of water. One thing that's been found to be really good for you is just to wake up and drink a lot of water when you wake up. And so I'll get a quart in right when I get up. And so that just jump starts me. And then the rest of the day, all I have to do is another quart and a half.
Wow. That's a lot of water. I used to do that. I used to do 2 cups every morning right when I got up. I fell out of that habit, and I haven't gotten back into that habit
yeah, but that's okay. And that's the other thing is we don't need to be hard on ourselves about these things, Just every day, do what you can and just, continually improve one little step at a time.
Absolutely. So one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, about Nature's Pantry, was the ethical side of the foods that you buy here. Because I know that a lot of foods that, like I see on the bananas, they're rainforest, they're rainforest certified, so that people aren't